Welcome, everyone. We are live with Hanging Out with Mike DiMuccio. This is a show brought to you by the Royal Alliance, and I'm very thrilled to host our inaugural type of show here, Hanging Out with Mike DiMuccio. I've got a very special guest who's standing by. I'm going to hear from shortly. I just want to say, if you're here for the first time and you want to get involved in this discussion with us, feel free to send us a chat. You can do so, or a text, or a tweet. You can do so by following us on Twitter. Our username is @RoyalAlliance1. We're also monitoring our Google Plus and Facebook pages, so if you'd like to ask a question of myself or Rick, feel free to do so, and we'll get to hear from you and answer some of those questions. Anyway, I'm thrilled to have this very, very special guest for a number of reasons. One, I've known Rick for a very long time in Nikken. I guess we go back almost a decade, maybe even more than a decade now. And he's been somebody I've been following very, very closely for a lot of reasons. He reminds me of myself. You know, I guess a decade separates us in age, a little bit more than that. I think I'm taking a little bit of liberty there.
You're 32 now?
In any event, this year Rick was honored by Nikken a couple of ways. Recently he received the Eagle Award by Donna and Ken Hankins, who put together a program in Spokane, Washington, honoring peers who they feel have contributed in a significant way to Nikken's evolution, Nikken's heart message, leadership, vision, etc. Well, it didn't go unnoticed as well to Nikken globally, and Nikken this year announced their Heart of Nikken recipient to Rick and Paige Murphy. So I'm very, very pleased and honored to have this year's recipient of the Nikken, or the Heart of Nikken Award, Mr. Rick Murphy. So welcome, Rick. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you, sir. I am well. Thank you for having me. It is an honor to be here, and I'm enjoying it very much. So I'm looking forward to having a great discussion with you.
You know, I know that our history at the very, very beginning, sort of, it's kind of the way you tell the story is kind of interesting, because I was sort of at a very important moment in my career when our paths crossed, and I guess it had somewhat of an influence on you at the time. So yep. It's just a great story. Why don't you sort of tell that story, how we first met, if you recall?
Are you talking about up in Toronto when I saw you for the first time?
That's what I'm talking about.
All right. When I first came on board in Nikken, we were probably 11 or 12 people deep from my upline, which was Denny and Shaw Rogers at the time, Dennis and Ruth Williams, and I was so far down. You probably remember back in those days, Mike, we barely had the computer. All we had was like fax back. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. When I was going silver, I was so excited. Every time somebody would order a pair of socks, I would get a fax back, not knowing that that cost me $5 a pop. And 1 month I did more fax backs than I made a check, which is a really funny story. But I was out in the hinterlands in the middle of nowhere, and I won a trip to Toronto. And I still remember the Windsor Harbor Castle Hotel. I'd met Dennis and Ruth once, but I'd never seen anybody else above the level of gold. And the biggest event I'd ever seen probably had 30 to 40 people, and most of it in my own downline. So, you know, I had never really seen anything. So I drove up through, I remember passing London and all the places I passed on the way to there, driving across Detroit, Windsor, and all that. And I remember walking into the Windsor Harbor Castle, and I was a silver who had gone gold the day before. And I was so irritated that I had to be a silver that I printed out my genealogy so I could prove to Nikken I just went gold. And I wrote gold in magic marker across silver so I could not. And then I sat in a section, and I'm going to tell you where I sat. I sat in the front right with the new golds. And I don't know if you remember, they had a video feed so your people back home could watch you. And I remember Zig Ziglar speaking, and I remember this guy getting up on stage and getting named the Consultant of the Year, and it was none other than Michael DiMuccio. And I got to see you get your Consultant of the Year. And then later that morning, thinking I was a big shot gold from Michigan because there were no other golds, I walked by a room that was roped off with great big thick ropes, thinking I was a big deal. And I was not allowed into the President's Club. And who was standing there looking good, smelling good, and in the President's Club? You. And I said to myself, this is the last time I've ever come to a convention when I'm not allowed in the secret room. So that's how I met you for the first time. I was but a tiny face in the back of the blurry crowd, my friend.
Maybe we got to go back to those secret rooms. They seem to have a pretty good effect.
They did. And by the way, let me say one other quick thing. This Eagle Award behind me, I not only got one that year, my wife and I received one. We were very honored. But our co-recipients that year were none other than Michael DiMuccio. So it was very special to us. We shared that award that year together, Mike. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, that was really cool. That very, very special thing to be honored by your peers. And I think that's what's really most important about the Heart of Nikken award for people who don't really know where that comes from. Nikken sends out a questionnaire to the members of the President's Club, and we vote. We first of all, I guess, nominate our award winner, and then we vote on it. And so this is a really special award because, Rick, this is acknowledgement from your peers who, if you were like me, I mean, you looked up to a lot of people, and to actually be acknowledged by your peers as a leader among leaders for many reasons. I mean, this Heart of Nikken says it all. It's really about the heart of an individual, and I kind of like to look at that and say this is really about the character of an individual. And so you have demonstrated tremendous character, Rick, and your wife Paige, and this is why they've put you front and center stage here. And I just want to say and acknowledge that's a huge honor, and I very much respect your having achieved that. And I have to tell you something. I want to go back for a second, and then we're going to go really back. About a year or so ago, you invited me to be a guest speaker at the Austin event. Yeah. The Pathfinders Austin event, and I heard you deliver, in my opinion, Rick, probably the best talk I've ever heard in my Nikken career.
Thank you.
It was, in fact, if you're really interested, you can listen to this talk on Dave Johnson's iPod. What do you call it? iPod. Thank you very much. Podcast. Still getting up to speed on this terminology. So Dave Johnson has The Call of a Leader. You can search it on podcasts on iTunes, and the talk is called Let Freedom Ring. I swear, Rick, at one point in time in that talk, I had to hold myself back from jumping up and applauding. But at the second point in the talk, I couldn't hold myself back, and so I just erupted in applause, and that got the whole audience going as well. But it was a talk that, man, that really moved me, and moved me at a level that was profound. So maybe we can get into some of the things that you really represented in that talk that were so monumental and representative of, I think, why you're here. So let me just go back to, why are you here? Let's go back to the early days. Where were you in life when this was presented to you?
Well, I'll tell you, Mike, you actually have to go back a little bit farther. I was a fellow, going back to the time, the earliest memories I have, I always knew exactly what I wanted to be. My father was a Vietnam veteran. My grandfather fought in World War II. My uncle was Marine of the Year in 1943 on Guadalcanal. He actually sat in an anti-aircraft gun at a place called Bloody Ridge and wouldn't run. And I remember the stories of these people. And I grew up at a place called the VFW, surrounded by all these guys. And my dad was on the wall there from Vietnam. And I always just really believed in this country. I believed in freedom, and it was something that was just instilled in me. Now, mind you, as a little kid, I knew those guys had a lot of hard times fighting for our freedom, but I had stars in my eyes about the idealistic of, sands of Iwo Jima and serving our country. And so all I ever wanted to be was a soldier. And I think the reason that it appealed to me, it had nothing to do with hurting people or those sorts of things. It just seemed to me that freedom is really precious. And all throughout human history, most people have lived in bondage, while very few people, kings, and then kings figured out if they say, well, God makes me the ruler, so if you're against me, you're against God. And then it transferred to where the top rich people control everything. Most people really never had a shot, and they were pretty much just around to serve at the behest. I was watching Pillars of the Earth the other night, and the Earl was actually killing some peasants for going to farm somewhere else. And he said, your only purpose is to feed my family. Wow. And I think most people don't have any impression, be it whether they're from Canada, America, or whatever, that if you go back all throughout human history, 98% of people never even had a shot. What's fascinating is most people throughout human history, it wasn't even considered that average people were equal. So this dynamic that happened, even going back all throughout history, you had the kings, you had noble people and all that stuff. Going up to the French Revolution, even the European folks that had those first ideas that we should do something other than that, still were not talking about the rights of me. They were talking about the rights of man in this third-party, esoteric, we nobles are going to give you more rights. When the American Revolution happened, they took it a step further, and they said the rights of men, meaning not that me and a couple smart people are going to give you a little bit of land, but you're still under my thumb. But this amazing idea that your rights come from somewhere better. You know, I believe it's God, some other people believe the universe, or whatever you want to believe. But your rights don't come from a person. Your rights come from somewhere bigger than us, and all of us deserve an equal chance to become as unequal as possible. And I guess I've always read history. I've read thousands of books on history. I probably would have a, if I got a PhD in anything, it's history. And I understand the value of it, and I always loved it. And I just felt like it was a noble thing to go and stand up for it, Mike. And so when I was 17 years old, I marched in and told my parents I'm going in the Army. And my family had a Ben Franklin store, which is a tiny little franchise. And if I'm going on too long, just stop me. But I'll get. Do you want me to take it to a point with it?
Well, I want you to get to where were you at when you first discovered Nikken? I mean,
that's exactly where I'm going with it. All I ever wanted to do was do that. And I'll zoom ahead a little bit. When I went into the service, and I actually ended up overseas in a place outside Nasiriyah, I jumped out of a helicopter and broke my leg and turned my ankle around backwards. They told me I could no longer do what I was supposed to do in the military. In fact, I got this out for you tonight. I only get it out every once in a while. All I ever wanted to do was be that, because it was something I believed in. This is the boot that cut off my leg. You can see they took a pair of scissors and cut it off.
Right.
Because my leg was turned around backwards, and you can see it's flat on the bottom. I walked the soles off it. That was about a 2-inch sole when I deployed over there. And when I came back and they said I couldn't be that anymore, I didn't know what else I wanted to be. And I went to college, I got a degree as an engineer, worked for 4 Fortune 500 companies, tried to work in politics. Everywhere I went, Mike, and that's the reason I took the time to share that, I felt like a man without values, that what I was doing was not congruent with the things I believed in. And I always felt empty. And the first time I came across Nikken, I want you to know I blew it off for months. I made fun of it. I impugned it. The only reason I went to my first Nikken meeting is because the guy that invited me told me if I go, I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, go to Detroit, he would give me tickets to a Detroit Red Wings game. So I actually I went to this thing, and I met this guy with curly red hair out front, and I was getting the coffee. He said, "Well, hello there, young man," and he called me young man. That irritated me. And he said, "How are you doing today?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just here to do an hour of this meeting, and I'm going to go watch some hockey over at the Joe." And he said, "Well, I hope you find what you're looking for and have fun at the hockey game." 20 minutes later, there's an introduction. It says, "Introducing Nikken Vice President Larry Profit." It was him. I told I was just there for hockey tickets.
Wow.
When I heard the message about this company was about something, not about a case of juice or a box of soap, that it wasn't about sign up and make money and look at my watch, that it wasn't about people are disposable, come and work, and if you don't like it, we got a stack of resumes. I heard a place that before I ever heard the message, I already believed the things they were talking about. So I didn't get transformed by hearing about Nikken. Nikken spoke to me on a level of truth that rang true. So being a part of Nikken was a natural thing, Mike. It never felt like anything other than the thing that I already believe. And the reason I took so long to set that up is because you can't understand the second part until you understand the first part.
Sure.
But I was disconnected from the things I believe in until I found this company as an outlet to pursue them.
Let me pause you for a second there, because you're bringing up something that's very near and dear to me, and that is, how do we approach people, or what do we present to people when we first start talking to them about Nikken? And there was a great book written called Start With Why. The author's mind escapes me for the moment. Maybe you'll remember him. It was not that long ago, but he often talks about Steve Jobs and right. What set Apple apart from so many other companies out there. And he said what they started to do in terms of their marketing was they started to share their values, the things that they valued, figuring that people who relate to their values will relate to whatever it is that they're creating or making. And now you got people standing in line before a product is even released. That's how powerful that messaging and their adherence to those values are. So what you're telling me is the thing that first spoke to you was the values that were being articulated as to what it is that Nikken stands for. And I just want to reiterate, I guess, or repeat, those are the 5 pillars of health: balance in the body, mind, family, society, finances. A sense of purpose is I guess, what you saw and connected to.
Yeah, and a red hot opportunity to bring something here that to me was so necessary when people are getting laid off in Flint, Michigan at that time, and getting laid off in Detroit, and getting laid off in Kalamazoo. And I was working in manufacturing, and I was watching people get treated like they were commodities. And it's even worse today. And there's a place where people not only want to get in and make $50 for sponsoring somebody, but they want a place where they actually can go to bed at night. You know, most people are not attracted to making $87 million. What 90% of people want today is to lay down in their bed at night when they're tired and not be so worried about paying their bills that they toss and turn, their pillow gets hot. Most people just want to know that there's something out there better for them than chasing bills, Mike. And we don't have to be profound. We don't have to be perfect. I look people right in the eye and say, you know what? There's a company that's really fantastic. We're about to do what Apple did in 2001, where a multi-billion-dollar company goes from $9 a share to $400, but we're going to do it our way. It's a place where you can not only make a great living, but it's a place where you belong and you're not disposable and you count. We have a vision and a product line that impacts people's lives and a pay plan that's fair, that can compensate you to any degree that you want to work. It is the epitome of a place where anybody has an equal chance to become to become as unequal as possible. And that was what the people that wrote our document in 1776, that's what they wanted, and that's what we've got. So that's it.
So you had a pretty strong sense of who you were and what you stood for, and all of a sudden you found a company that was a beautiful match in that this was, yes, an opportunity that, of course, as a young man getting started in life, you gotta find your way in terms of economics. And you mentioned a few things. It sounds to me like you were describing our times today with so many, people losing their jobs here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
So you see the Nikken presentation of the day, let's just say, and it speaks to you in a certain way. What happens next?
I made a decision right there that this is what I was going to do with my life. I didn't sign up for $49 at the time. I didn't say I'm going to give this a shot. I had this inner peace, this balance. You know, Mike, in football, like they push on you and see if they can knock you over. A lot of people start their business. What would happen if you went away with a sense of balance and peace? And I had this balance that this is what I was going to do. So instead of going out to seek validation from people, hoping that they would like what I was doing, I was going out to influence. And you're either an influencer or an influencee, or another way I like to say it, you're either the wind or you're a sail. And so I went out, and part of it was I had the faith of a child. I wasn't overthinking this. It just never dawned on me that a 5A1 rated, multi-billion-dollar multinational, biggest and only total wellness company in the world, was going to do anything other than be huge. So I just told people, hey, I just found something massive. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I will not be working in a year. I'm going to invite you over Saturday. I'm going to show you a video clip because I don't know everything about it. I actually called Dennis Ruth Williams and said, what do you do to get started? They said, order this thing called a career pack. It's like a vital pack. And I'm not the most neat guy in the world, so I just dumped it out on a table. And I played the video, and I showed 6 people. I said, there's the stuff over there, and apparently it makes you feel better. And we walked over and looked at it, and the rest was history. We took off, and the business went. And then I also want you to know that for my first 9 months, okay, I tried to be a scientist and all these other things, and I wouldn't listen to anybody. I wouldn't take any coaching. My first 9 checks combined were less than $1,000. And I left a job making 6 figures to do this.
Okay, now let's pause there because this is a moment of truth. There's a lot of people who would have been very discouraged even sooner than that and probably would have quit. You know, they say that if you can't help somebody make something happen in the first 90 days, then it's bye-bye. But you had some stick-to-itness that is really an exception, not the rule. So, and I guess that comes from maybe your discipline, your training. What is it? Where does it come from? How did you know? Because you said you knew this company was going to be big. It was already big, and it wasn't a question mark. But at some point in time, a person realizes that maybe it's not for me. Maybe it's going to be big, but I'm just not going to be big in it because maybe I don't have the right stuff. Right. But you overcame that. How? Like why?
If I took a chainsaw outside and I used the back end of it and beat it on a tree, it'd be real easy to say chainsaws don't work. I learned how to turn it around and put the chain on the tree.
But that's wise. You know, you had some sense about you that you figured, okay, if other people are succeeding at this and I'm not, it's not because there's something wrong with this opportunity. It's I haven't learned how. It's not necessarily because there's something wrong with you, but maybe you're just not doing something right.
Yeah, and I had that. I had the understanding as I really looked at this, that the opportunity, and see, there's the biggest reason people get stressed in this business, or they get upset, quote unquote, that it's not working right, and let's be blunt, is because there's a disconnect between what they want and what they're doing, and instead of bridging that gap to get the knowledge or to do the activity, we question the gap and then we get mad at it. It's kind of like if I stare at a chainsaw sitting on a table, it doesn't chop down a tree no matter how much I want to. But to have that misconception in your head, look, they're going to pay you $10,000 a month plus the rest of your life for building this business. No one's going to knock on your door and hand it to you. You're going to have to figure out, and you know, I had some skills like determination and maybe some doggedness. What I didn't have was I was a lot more, and my wife is very wise, and I'll get to that in a minute, but our business is where it is, and she's had a massive influence on it and me. But one of the things she said that's the most wise she's ever said was, Rick, you need to start being more interested and less worried about being interesting. Saturday, it's before Thanksgiving. Well, I just can't do Nikken now because I've got a lot going on. The entrepreneur realizes I need to have the self-discipline to be building my business right now. And the disconnect between being self-employed and having a job, one advantage I have, Mike, is I didn't have that problem because my parents always owned businesses and we just worked whenever we needed to work. And I remember, have you ever seen the movie The Agony and the Ecstasy with Charlton Heston about the Sistine Chapel?
No, I haven't.
It's one. If you ever want a beautiful movie, it's about Michelangelo and the Pope and this struggle, how these two men created this masterpiece. And the Pope would come in all the time and say, Michelangelo, when are you going to be finished? And he would say, it will be finished when it is finished. and if you're self-employed, it's not do I work 5 hours a week. It's it will be finished when it is finished.
Yeah, you know, okay, this is a really important point because what you're talking about is the difference between an entrepreneurial mentality and the job mentality. And a lot of people who are coming into network marketing are coming in from a job mentality. And the difference you're saying is rather than be oriented around the activity, you were oriented around the outcome. The results matter. Your results oriented in terms of your goals rather than busy oriented, activity oriented.
It's even more than that. Another way to say it is from the time we're little, we all respond to negative conditioning. If you don't get good grades, you won't play sports. If you don't do this, you'll be fired. If you don't come in on Monday, you won't get a promotion. In network marketing, it's if you do this, you will get retired. If you do this, you will go silver. So a lot of people will call me and say, oh, Rick, I can't make it on the call tonight. So-and-so came over. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you calling me? I'm going to do the call anyway. You understand? It's the difference between being limited by negative reinforcement and reprogramming yourself to look for positive reinforcement. And I had a background working in special operations in the military. And the difference between a special operations unit and a regular unit is the reason they weed people out. It's not the physical. They're looking for the people that when you do a mission, you have a team of 6 or 12 or whatever, or 9 guys that are all self-motivated, which is why they're able to do such bigger jobs than a group of guys that you have to tell what to do. Same thing as an entrepreneur. Mike, nobody told you this call tonight, you set it up, it was your guys' idea, and you drove it. You're an entrepreneur. People that have a job will plug in, but I guarantee there's somebody tonight that was going to listen, but doggone it, I just got busy.
Right.
That's the difference. That's the difference between a roll diamond and staying.
Okay, now let's switch gears here for a second because obviously your first several months in Nikken was not a stellar success. You didn't come out of the chute like a rock and roll hero. You had to go through some school of hard knocks in Nikken, and coming from a place where you're already doing well in life and still looking for something. But okay, so this has got to beat your ego up pretty seriously when you're not having the kind of success that you think you should be having. You see others having. You know you're not stupid. You know you can make this work, but it's frustrating. So let's just take it to a moment of absolute extreme frustration. I'm sure you've had many. We've all had. Okay, tell me about that.
I quit 86 times. I said I hate network marketing. I hate magnets. One time and let me tell you how you know how much of a guy I am. I carried that. Remember the career pack came in that big white box? Yeah. I'm such a cheapskate. I carried that box around with a ripped down side with duct tape around it for 9 months. And that was me. And then finally, I was in a meeting with a guy, and we were just talking. He'd been in network marketing for a while. He was a platinum, and Denny and Char Rogers were there, and they kept saying, I kept saying, I'm really struggling. And they said, how do you make it in Nikken? Help people, educate people about how do you make it in Nikken? Spread the word. No, how do you make it in Nikken? And I kept giving all these answers. And they said, okay, let me change the topic. How do you score a run in baseball? I said, you cross the plate. Okay, so if I run 8,000 miles in a circle, do I score a run? No. If I rock 1,000 times in a rocking chair, do I move a foot? No. They said, what's the strategy of the business? And then he put the comp plan in front of me. To be a real diamond, what's it take? 3 people committed to going diamond or 6 people committed to going platinum. At that moment, I had my eureka moment where I changed from trying to be somebody out to treat the sick to someone looking for the healthy to spread the word to the sick. I went from being somebody looking to get the lowest level person I could who would listen to me and beg them to join network marketing to I changed to we are bringing a multi-billion-dollar multinational, biggest and only total wellness company in the world here. It's part major corporation, part franchise, part home business. We're the first of us. We have amazing products, and to be quite frank, we're looking for partners that want to fill the biggest arena in this town, and we're going to do it in the next couple of years. And are you interested? And I went from begging to sorting at a turn of a dime, and I broke 33 silvers in the next 11 months.
Wow! Now
Yeah.
this is now, folks. If you're what you just heard in the last few seconds here is, we can just have fun now, drink coffee or something, because you just said it all right there.
I quit begging.
That was the turning point. And when I do my trainings, I talk about begin with the end in mind. What's the end in mind? You don't want to go silver. Silver is just it's just one of the stops along the way to where we're actually going. It should be a consequence of what it is you're actually trying to accomplish. What are you trying to accomplish? You want a life, you want a lifestyle, and that's not going to happen by yourself. You need to create an army, you need to create a movement, and to do that you need help. So rather than going out looking to help, you need to go out looking for help. That's a huge difference. Yeah,
I went from being a sale, looking for people to get excited and make me fire. Oh, really? You want to sign up? I'm excited. Oh my gosh, I've got a prospect here. I'm excited. I went to being the wind where other people were reacting to me. Nikken's paying us to be influencers, not influencees, and it changed my business. Now, I will tell you this. It wasn't until Paige came along and added the dimension to the business where I learned how to develop leaders and how to expand it out from that. I had tier knowledge coming, but my initial breakthrough, Mike, was that when I went from being a beggar to being a leader.
So when Paige came along, you met Paige when you were already in Nikken?
I was. I'd been in Nikken for a while, and I actually went through a really tough lifetime, Mike. I moved from Michigan to Texas and pretty much nuked my own life, for crying out loud. I went through a divorce. It was a terrible time. And my business went from having a couple thousand people to next to nobody. It went basically to zero. So when I met Paige, I went from living in a big house with a Cadillac STS to living in a one-bedroom apartment, a studio. All I owned was a chair. And so I really have 2 stories in Nikken. And she looked at me and said, I believe in you. I believe in this. We are not going to back down. We are going to take it to the top. And that's when her part of the story came in. When, it's hard for me to explain to people because I do a lot of this speaking. And she would be right now. The last couple months, we have a 4-month-old baby. And
congratulations!
We're both home. We're so blessed to have him. She's such a big part of our business because the real story of our business, if you look at the 100% total of our story up to now, about 20% of it was in the beginning. It's been 80% from that point when we built in the 2000s. And that's when things really kind of happened and we learned how to work with. That's kind of when I met you, Mike. We started working with technology. We started working across borders. Our actual trajectory when I went from being a tiny little face in the back was right about this time when we went out and basically put our noses to the grindstone and rebuilt our business.
Rick, we got some people who've sent us some messages via Twitter. I just want to mention that if you'd like to ask myself or Rick a question, sure. You can tweet us at Royal Alliance 1. or you can follow us on Facebook or Google Plus. We're looking at our pages there. Now, this question comes in from Dr. Tommy Tsausas, who's asking from Twitter, was there a transition point in your Nikken career? I guess there's been a couple now. So I think the question he's really asking is, when did you go from, well, I assume, was Nikken full-time for you? At what point in time did Nikken become your full-time thing?
I walked in and left a job making $113,500 plus bonus and benefits when I was a direct.
Wow.
You know why? Because I was too stupid to think I was going to fail.
Wow. Well,
I don't recommend that, by the way. That was right for me.
Okay.
And then the second time, Howard, let me say this. When I started rebuilding it, my wife had a very successful career. She was a top person at Saks. So she kept that career, and it was hard for her when I was working from home and doing this to get up at 6 in the morning and work till 7 at night and all the stress. And she would come home really tired. So even though I got all the touchdowns in Nikken, she was blocking. And I want to let you guys know, all your people out there that are married couples, I wouldn't be here today in my second Nikken run if it wasn't for her doing those blocks for that first few years. So just because you're working a job and your spouse is working Nikken or whatever your arrangement is just as much a vital part of this team to do that. And one of the questions we talked about earlier, Mike, was how do you get family time? I'll talk about that in a minute. But you get buy-in from the family. So she decided she was going to do this. Now, after 3 or 4 years of her doing that, she was able to transition home, and now we've been home for going on the last 6 years together as a team. So we actually worked a game plan as a team where she blocked and I ran until we were in a position we were both running. So that was some transition points.
And that question, by the way, comes from Natalie, who asked from Twitter, how do you plan massive actions and family priorities / schedules? So, I mean, okay, so let's talk about this massive action stuff, because in order to have a team and to attract a team and to bring your business, so you brought your business to the diamond level so far, there had to be a focused effort. I know you're a strong believer in planning and action plans and 90-day runs. So talk a little about that.
Absolutely.
What happened for you?
First thing we did is we decided we were going to work smart, and we knew where our events are. We knew where our previews were. We, like Mike, believe in setting up online things like this where our people at a distance can feed things. We set up a groundwork to where our team, we could work across borders. And so first of all, we knew what we were going to do. I knew what I was feeding. Then what we did was we started funneling people towards them with the understanding that the 5 pillars of health of balance, I think one of the misconceptions in Nikken that people say, well, I'm not going to do much this week. I'm going to take the family pillar. Folks, let me give you a news flash. You are going to be strategically imbalanced for a while to earn the right to live in balance. You are not given the 5 pillars of health. You have the ability to earn them. So when you sign up in Nikken, the best thing you can do is get buy-in from the people close to you, that I'm doing this for you. Our family's doing this together for each other. And the people that are not a part of my core group that aren't going to support me, I'm not asking their permission. And that's a fact. And I have had static from people that I love in my close family. Oh, you don't work anyway. You can just come over on Saturday. And I'll say, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I come over on Saturday, and then you come over, we'll do the next family meeting at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. And they'll say, well, we can't. I'm at work. I'll say, exactly. I'm going to my meeting on Saturday. So I treat it like a career, and my wife treats it like a career, and then our family supports us because we put out the energy. If you're weak with your energy, and I'm going to try to do this, everybody around you will clamp onto you. If you declare this is what I'm going to do, people will also react to that. It goes back to what I said a minute ago, Mike. Are you the wind or are you a sail?
Yeah, you're working with the law of attraction in spades here. You expect success, and you attracted it. Let me okay, so you quit 86 times. Obviously, you're still here, so you must have joined 87 times.
I restarted 87 times. That's right.
What's definition of success? Get up one more time, then you fall. So now, I know there's people thinking, because I'm thinking, you must have gone through your warm market list. You probably did all the things that you're supposed to do. It's way down the road. You're not having the success you think you should be having. It's a huge struggle mentally, financially, emotionally. You've already got the personal issues going on. I know you had a son from the previous marriage.
Yeah, that's tough.
And so, wow, this is like boy, the world's coming crashing down on you, and you might think, I made the biggest mistake of my life because everything was going right until I got involved in this. It would be easy to blame this.
Yes.
But something happened in you, and you turned this situation around. And so maybe if we can get to that point and continue from there.
I guess for me, when I looked at all the things, this was not an emotional decision. It was the most logical. If I'm going to go out and work, by the way, my wife and I are 42. We're the only one. All of our friends have college degrees, Mike. We have relatives that are CEOs, top salespeople, master's degrees. Our friends that we associate with are very educated people, as I'm sure yours are. Every single one of them, guys, I'm going to say this again, every single one of them is in 1 to 2 different careers deep than they were just 5 years ago. We are the only 2 of our friends who are still doing the same career that they were doing before 2007. One of our relatives makes over $1 million a year and has had to change jobs twice and has now been out of work for 18 months and says this isn't real. Now, let me say why I start backwards to work backwards. When I sat down 10 years ago, when I went through my self-inflicted stupidity, and then I was like Johnny Cash Saved by June, if you ever seen that movie. That's how I look at my wife.
Sure.
I evaluated what was going on, and both of us arrived that it wasn't an emotional decision. It was the smartest play to build a business that was going to get us where we want to go. I'm in Austin right now, Mike. If I want to go to Dallas, I got to take I-35 north. If I take I-35 south, I'm not going to get to Dallas. It's not emotional. So if I take a job 10 years ago, right now, as an engineer, I would have been getting a new job every 12 to 18 months, constantly fired, constantly downsized, constantly stressed out. My wife would probably still be working, and our kid, if the kid was here, would be in daycare like he's in a warehouse all day. I was aware of that 10 years ago. Another thing that taught us in special operations is we think ahead 3 steps. We have everything game planned. When I make a move, I know what they're going to do and what I'm going to do if they do something. So I sat back and said, where is this going to take me? And I just had to be wise enough to realize, once again, if I want to go to Dallas, I got to take I-35 north. So 10 years ago, I didn't have to sit around wringing my hands, hoping I'm doing right. It was certain because I was taking, quote unquote, I-35 north. And I know that sounds like a really direct and blunt answer, but elegance is the most profound answer in the fewest words. There was no flowery explanation other than this was the smartest play that we have. And I think if the people listening to this would really evaluate their options, where else are you going to get to work where you want, when you want, with whom you want, doing something you can believe in, with products that make a difference, with a pay plan that is unlimited, that's built on changing other people's lives, because you only go diamond with 3 platinums. Guys, if you go real diamond, you've got at least 3 diamonds, 9 platinums, 81 golds, or I'm sorry, 27 golds and 81 silvers. You've helped 110 people have at least a second income. Let me tell you this, every time you break a silver at 12,000 points, let's say 9,000 of it's commissionable, you've just put almost $6,000 of the people's pockets in your group, because Nikken pays out over 50%. You want to talk about the government doing economic stimulus? I'm going into neighborhoods and doing my own stimulus. There's nothing about this that I have to apologize for. And it was the smartest possible play. And the reason I get wound up about it, because I remember having nothing 10 years ago. I had a white Ford Ranger truck and a chair. And I had this beautiful woman with an unbelievable job that for some reason loved me. And when we sat down and game planned, we you know what? We didn't put our hat in our hand and beg for the future that we can get. We made a plan and took the future that we want.
Wow, this is not black ops. This is not even white ops. This is light ops. I love it.
It is, and Mike, you're not a passenger in your future. You may have to fight off. You know, the way your business is going to grow, Mike, you're going to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but you're always hanging on to half of what you took. That's how it goes. You're going to sign up 3. One's going to flake out. One's going to say they're buying 97 environment packs and get a super mini, and one's going to come on board and get going and be a steady producer. That's life in the big city. I don't get mad at football when I get tackled because someone hit me. I understand that's part of the game. You know, if I get tackled, I'm not up all bent out of shape because my elbow hurts. That's what happens when you play football. So when I'm playing this game, I simply understood it for what it was, and then we played it like it is. and you got a Mike, you know as well as I do, if you teach 3 people to go diamond, you will get a raw diamond pin. There's no committee that meets, am I right?
That's right. It's
so
not
where's
emotional.
the if? So where's the if?
Well, okay, so let's get back there, because again, you're in a very odd circumstance in life where, you know, everything seems to be going against you, but you've got this mental fortitude, Rick, that maybe most people aren't equipped with. What would you say to somebody who is at that point where you were at, but maybe doesn't have the horsepower that you have? I mean, honestly, there must have been times, Rick, where you just looked at yourself in the mirror and said, "What the hell am I doing? What am I doing here? What am I?"
Because fear, that's fear.
So,
fear creeps up on you, Mike, and if you're ever in a let's just say a real zone where military stuff is happening, and fear comes up on you. And I want you all to know something. Most people have this misconception that you're going to overcome fear once you do things. And I want you to know the way courage works is you don't do things, or you don't get courage and then do things. You do things and then you get courage. And I want you guys to know that everybody does have the fortitude, but you just have to get going. And if the door's completely shut on you and you're thinking everything is going against me, most people think I've got to completely open it to do anything. All you got to do to start changing your life, if you're working 60 hours a week, start making 1 or 2 or 3 contacts, feed them into a couple videos, connect them into something like this. Then you've opened the door just 1/4 of an inch. And once I've got that door open 1/4 of an inch, then I can pound a wedge into it and crank it open. You're not going to go and completely revolutionize your life in 6 minutes. What I want you to do is stop the retreat, first of all. I love Rudyard Kipling, and one of my favorite poems is British Soldier. And there's a line in that, Mike, that says, when the officers are dead and the sergeants turn white, you know that it's ruined to run from a fight. So take to the ground and keep good order and wait for relief like a soldier. There comes a time when all of your lives, guys, you got to stop retreating. And you got to say, I'm going to stop falling back now. And I may not take all the ground, but I'm going to talk to somebody today, and I'm going to load up a preview with 2 or 3 prospects, and I'm going to start taking steps forward again. And when you decide that I'm going to start moving forward again, it will create the next opportunity. Don't focus on what you can't do. Focus on what you can do. If you can't talk to 80 prospects this week, but you can talk to 2, then put your mental attention on the can, and watch how your focus will change from seeing your limits to seeing your obstacles. All you need is a crack of light in this, guys, to turn it into a limitless possibility. Run towards that spot.
Okay, Rick, tell me about the people that you talk to. Where'd you find these people when you burned out your list?
You know, I never really had much of a list, Mike, because I kind of lived everywhere. And one of the things about me that a lot of people don't know is I'm not really that gregarious in my normal capacity. When I came back from Iraq, I wasn't the most bubbly person. Let me just leave it at that. I didn't have a lot of close friends. I kind of stayed away from folks. I actually dealt with a lot of things that people think, oh, you're just, I'm not naturally good at this. Okay, I'm not. There's days when I get up in the morning and feel just like you guys feel. I don't want to talk to anybody. There's times I get up to speak on stage and my stomach aches before I get up there. Am I going to do a good job? What am I going to tell these people it's going to make a difference? I know how y'all feel, but you just keep doing the thing. So one of the interesting thing is for me, I've got a lot of faith, and I always, ask for these people to be brought in my life and for them to cross my path. And what's really fascinating, Mike, is I go out and I do things that I like to do anyway, and my wife and I go places that we enjoy, and sure enough, people that are like us are doing the same kind of things. And I don't go up and blow people's, their toupee comes flying off their head, and as I blow Nikken at them, how you doing? Ask them 5 or 6 questions. How long you lived here? Be genuinely interested in them. Within 5 or 6 questions, Mike, anywhere that I went, people would tell me their needs. I was at the gym the other day, and there was a woman standing there at the counter drinking out of a bottle of water, and I said, hey, you got that, check this out. The woman standing next to her said, oh my gosh, what is that? My daughter has a very serious disease, and it's called like Merch, and her skin is actually rot. It's a horrible thing. She's the sweetest girl. And this whole thing turned into, well, I used to be in real estate, and I did X and Y, and now I'm looking for more income, and now I'm looking for this, all because I spent 10 minutes actually caring about her story. And now I've got a meeting tomorrow with the mother and the daughter to talk about enrolling them in the Nikken business, all because I asked more about them before they were open to hearing about me. So the bottom line, Mike, is there's 400 million prospects in North America. If you take the time to get into somebody's stream of consciousness and ask them some questions. And so most of my contacts, I met by literally, in the words of Patrick Swayze, I was nice. Until it's time not to be nice. No, I'm just kidding. But honestly,
Well,
that's
listen,
the thing. I'm just nice to people.
You are the Heart of Niken, and that's for a reason. So let's talk about that for a second. What does that mean to you?
You know, it's an odd thing, and I'm going to tell you why my first word I'm going to use is odd. Because most of my life, I've tried to not be the heart. I probably lean more towards being the tougher end. My wife has done a lot towards bringing out the better side of me and my affiliation with Niken. Because when you work, you know, when you're trained to hurt people and do those sorts of things, you get one exterior. When you are a part of something that changes people's lives, I guess I'm kind of like, you ever seen The Grinch? The Grinch's heart grew 3 times bigger times 2. Being a part of this, and my natural state is to really care about people and really want to help them. Probably circumstance made me on the surface be the guy that, like, if you would have met me 10 years ago, instead of saying, hey, how's it going? I would have been the guy that says, so, if I made eye contact at all. So the reason I tell you it means a lot is because I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. I mean, someday, Mike, I'll tell you about sitting up at the VA, when my wife said, hey, listen, you got to take care of some of these things. You're not sleeping at night, and your temperament and stuff. And I walk in there, and there's a mother holding a 22-year-old son crying in the clinic, and I'm above her on the wall it says, the price of freedom is visible here. So it's been a long journey to get to the point when I would even be worthy of a Heart of Niken award. My wife always has been. But it means a lot because, if anything, it means that at this point in my life at 42, I'm blessed with a 4-month-old son. I got a business that I love. I love our team. I would break my back for any of them. I'd break my back for you. The reason it's meaningful is because it means I'm probably following a path that has yielded the result that I never expected to get, which was to be a Heart of Niken, because I always figured that I was more the tougher side of the business. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so I'm humbled by it because it's the thing I was not seeking to be recognized for that, but it's the thing that God gave me, and it has really set me back. And I also know that that's who I want to be, and I'm proud of it, and I want to do it a lot of honor this year. So I know that's a pretty esoteric answer, but honestly, if you would ask me 12 years ago, what awards will you get, I wouldn't even have put myself on the list to get it. That's how much it means to me.
Wow. I'll tell you, it's I can see it's a very humbling experience. And
yeah, I don't even know what to say about it. In fact, I feel uncomfortable talking about it. I probably shouldn't.
No, I think it's very appropriate because I think the thing that I appreciate most about my Niken life and my Niken career is you become a different person. There's good in everybody, but I was asked, I guess it was today on one of the on Google Plus or something. Do people become this way when they become successful in Niken, or what? And my answer was no. I think Niken is like a magnifying glass. It just simply magnifies what's already there.
Yeah.
And so you have a tremendous calling, and you have a sense about it, a knowing about it that first led you down the path that you were on in the military, and to represent all the virtues of what founded that nation. Why your talk was so moving for me was because you reminded me, and you reminded us, listening to that, of what people were prepared to do to give themselves, their family, and their future generations the opportunity to be free and live free lives, and not be beholden to some arbitrary standard that decided that there were going to be people above them because of where they were born or who they were born to.
Yeah, and Mike, most of the people that did that, you don't even know their names. They were just people. And let me. I'm going to say. Do you mind if I say one quick thing about that?
No, sure. Go ahead. Jump in.
Most of the people on the call that will hear this, when you see great people, JFK or Roosevelt or Martin Luther King, isn't it fascinating that we tend to judge ourselves on how we're not like them? I can't speak like John F. Kennedy. I can't speak like Zig Ziglar. Isn't it, when I was young, I looked to the strengths of the people I look up to draw inspiration. The older I get, the more I draw comfort from the fact that most of those people had tremendous flaws and still found the capacity to overcome them. My life has been marked a lot more by things that I've overcome to try to live a good life and be a good husband and father, to be good to the people in the business. I've had to overcome more. And most people say, oh, I can't. It drives me crazy when people say, oh, Rick, this business is easy for you. I can't talk to people like you can. Sometimes I'm supposed to say, you know what, I'd love you to snap in my body for 5 minutes because I'm overcoming things, you're overcoming things. You just have to decide if you're going to be held back by your limitations or if you're going to succeed in spite of them, because both those realities exist at the Y fork that you're at right now in your business. I'm here to tell you guys, the greatest people out there, I could list them off for hours, had flaws that they had every excuse not to be great. All of you on this call have flaws and challenges that will hold you back. But you know what? You also can overcome them, because I want you to start measuring yourself by what you can do, not on what you can't do. And I'm sorry to interject that, Mike, but that's been on my heart all day.
I think that's, that's a great message. I think people need to hear this, and it needs to be reinforced. And coming from somebody who is in the position you're in, Rick, it means a lot more because you've been there. You know what it's like to be in their shoes, and
yeah, I know what it's like. You think I don't know what it's like, Mike, to worry about money? Most of my life, we didn't have anything growing up. I know what it's like to watch my older son's face disappear in the back window of a car and would do anything to grab him. I know what it's like to have this beautiful woman that loves me and be in a financial hole where I can't give her the things that she wants. I know what it's like to watch her work 60 hours a week while I'm doing this business, and my business fell apart because I moved and everything. I know what you're going through, and I'm here to tell you, you can do it. Okay, you can overcome that stuff. I know that some of you are saying, man, I want to go silver and I haven't made it yet. You know what? Shut the book on it and go now. I didn't do it for 9 months straight, and I was full-time. Okay? I know some of you are saying, I'm platinum and not making the check that I want. Stop thinking about what you're not making and start saying, you know what? I'm platinum, and I get to start building, getting paid 4 levels deep, paid at the 20% level, people that I sponsor. Start to change the thoughts, because you can do this. And I'll tell you what, guys, wherever you are, the fight starts now. The fight starts now. Turn it around today.
Where do you get your help, Rick? I mean, who feeds? Well, I guess you've already said it in so many ways. Your wife has been such an instrumental part of keeping you on track. But if you're like me, you need to keep your mind fed. Sure. You need to keep your attitude adjusted, if you will, every once in a while.
Right.
What's your source of inspiration? Where do you get your horsepower?
I'll tell you, you're going to laugh at me. A lot of people read a lot of inspirational books. I actually read history books and military history. I read about Julius Caesar and Abraham Lincoln and Alexander, and I read very carefully what they did. I draw a lot from church and from my faith. My brother's a pastor. He's very instrumental in my life. And I draw a lot of that. I love to watch things that inspire me. I love to watch people overcome things. I love to watch people serving something nobler than themselves. Those are the things that inspire me. Right here, the Wounded Warrior Project. This is really important to me. Things like that inspire me. For me, I guess that probably answers it, Mike. If I keep myself in a vibration to where I'm serving something that's greater than myself, I tend to not fall out of motivation. In fact, I'll tell you this, no one ever committed suicide or got depressed when they were committed to the service of other people. It's when you focus on yourself that those things happen to you. So I think mine would probably be less things that would be in the traditional sense. Then I try to keep myself in the vibration of doing something that feels like it's right. So it's kind of action-based. If I position myself in that vibration, it seems like I get a good result from it. And when I don't, I tend to get the other result. So I kind of watch what I'm doing to keep myself in the right vibration. Does that make sense?
Sure does. So what's your goals now? What's your next goal?
We're going to go Royal Diamond really fast. In fact, I'm sorting that out right now. We've done a bit of gardening in the group, and we're going to be actually working with a lot of excited people. I was at a meeting this weekend, and this is really important, and everybody in my group is really special. But I'm looking at Christina Lair, who has built this to the silver level in the last few months, and this is her primary income. Paula Levy is my next door neighbor. She's been through 3 downsizings in 3 years. She has MS. Her medication was $17,000 in 1 month, and her insurance wouldn't cover it. In fact, when she started Nikken, Mike, she was taking 15 medications. She's down to 1. Jeremy and Rayla Wilson have a brand new baby and a 2-year-old daughter, and they're building this for their future. Jeremy and Danny Greco have 4 little girls. I got a 4-month-old I can hear out there crying right now because he's getting a tooth. I've got a 14-year-old son that I want to make proud of me. My goals are to make sure I go to bed every night, and I'm going to say, did I do everything I could do to be a good upline? And when I wake up in the morning, I commit that I'm going to do everything I can do to get these people home. It means the world to me. Not one person in this group or this company will fail because we failed to be good uplines. Those are the things that are my goals, and we're going to knock Roll Diamond out really fast. But when I'm standing on stage, my biggest goal is not just to be glad that I'm there and proud that I'm there, but to be proud of how we got there, and to see the faces of the people that we took with us, and to look and to join you in the ranks and some of the other folks in the Roll Alliance that have already done it. I think it's a proud thing. It's a noble thing. It's a deed that I could tell my son about, that he'll be proud of. And I know that it'll be a thing that when I die, I will leave a mark bigger than my carbon footprint that I left behind me watching television. And that's really important to me. And when I do pass away, my upline's going to make about $10 when they bury me on that Kinko seat. so those are my goals. My last full measure of commission.
Rick, I love talking with you, and we need to do this more often. And listen, you count on me to help you with that goal.
Thank you.
Because you know, the Royal Alliance, our reason we put it together was to help the next generation, and you're truly that. You represent everything that's all about. You got a young family. I know you can really relate to the Nikken Wellness Home, the idea that we are making a difference in the lives of these children, even though they may not be aware of it yet. We've got just a minute here for me to close up, and just again, any last words?
Yeah, you're all here for a reason. You're all in your business. Take your mental feelings tonight from being a passenger in this. Grab an oar and start rowing. Create the future that you want. Have a little bit of courage and be a little bit bold. You know, go out and go after your dreams with something that has some vigor behind it. Don't question if you've got to work a Saturday. Just do it, and you'll know when you're done working Saturdays, because you'll just know. Don't question the price. Just step up and do it. People all over the world over the past couple centuries have died for their freedom. People have sacrificed for their freedom. People around the world right now are begging for freedom and willing and sacrificing their lives tonight. All you guys have to do in Nikken is live for your freedom and share things for your freedom, and have the courage to not die for your freedom, but just live for it. And that's what I want to leave you with. People have died for it. I want you to live for it. And that is meaningful, and that's what makes me inspired to be a part of Nikken.
Fantastic, Rick. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And this video you can share. It'll be posted tomorrow. Hook us up with Facebook, Google+. Stay a participant of the Royal Alliance. Keep aware of what's going on, the posts and so forth. And feel free to share this if you enjoyed this. Share this with some of your colleagues, friends, and potential partners. Good night, everyone. Thanks again, Rick.
Night, guys. You bet, Mike. Love you, man. Thank you.